After I laid down the phone, I went outside to the motel parking lot. The Coke machine sold me 4 small bottles of Coke for $0.10 each, and I got some ice. Back in my motel room, I used the opener on the wall in the bathroom to open one of the bottles. I put the others in the ice bucket. I then lay down on the bed to wait for whatever was going to happen. By evening, the desk held 4 empty Coke bottles, and it seemed it was time to go out of the motel room. As I stepped outside, I was facing 2 dark-colored cars with whip antennas, obviously government issue. Between me and the cars were 4 men in suits, and 3 of them had automatic rifles. I turned to walk towards the office, and one of the men raised his rifle and pointed it at my heart. I opened my hands to show they were empty and kept on walking. The man without the rifle yelled, "No!" and the rifle was slowly and carefully lowered. It seemed I was moving in slow motion, but my steady pace eventually got me to the motel office. The office was busy, and before I could talk to the manager, a peace officer in a brown uniform came in. I asked him if he could put me up at the jail that night, and he said he could. When I got to the marked patrol car, I was surprised to see an Asian man in the back seat. He opened the door for me, and he was very upset with riflemen in suits, and that just showed he was more sensible than I was. "Get down," he said, and pushed my head down below the back seat of the car, and he got down below the back seat too. We waited that way until the officer came back to the car. I asked the officer to drive around a while, and I tried to get acquainted with the Asian. He was a friend of my college photography friend, Stanley, and his last name was also Shem. Apparently he was sent there to help. If I needed it, I just didn't need it. The patrolman drove in circles around the park, and I found Stanley's friend didn't know very much about what had happened. I asked the officer to drop my friend off at a house, and I knew that one owned by a ham radio operator would welcome him. And they somehow knew just the one. When we got to jail, really a juvenile holding building, the only person inside was a man that must have been military intelligence. He was wearing a jumpsuit. On the table, I saw a couple boxes, one with a dial on it and a civil defense decal. And the dial jumped in response to a voice I heard in my head. It said, "Philip, can you hear me?" I watched as the dial jumped, and now I had the problem of responding to both the real world and the unreal world. But I'd been doing that for most of the last couple weeks, so this had become second nature now. I said, I want to be very cooperative here. I want to keep saying yes, yes, yes. Do you understand? And the needle jumped in response to my voice in my head. Okay. And then the life went out of it. It lay dead. The military type said very little, but took me to the holding cell, and this began what was to be a very busy night. Across the cell was a bunk bed, and I laid down in the bottom of the bunk, comfortable in the knowledge that I had passed the first test. There were going to be 3 others and a very long interview. before I left that building the next day.